Hey, Struglines, and I want to demonstrate some of the stuff I've known for a while, and some stuff I know, but I'm still trying to recognize and use. So first off, if you don't know, like assigning a variable in AutoHotkey is super easy, right? Let's say var1 colon equals Bob, and if we put a message box here, oops, that's funny, var1. We launch it, run it, there's Bob, right? We stored it in a variable. Then we wanted var2 to colon equal Fred. And down here, we'll space it apart a little. var2, relaunch, run. Bob and Fred. Okay, we've stored both. Now, here's something you may or may not know, and you've probably seen this at times, is AutoHotkey. When you're doing something simple like this, you can put a comma here and bring this up into the same level. And so to prove that, let's do var3 colon equals Joe, a tab, var3, relaunch it, run. So now we have all three. So you can assign variables by using a comma to break it up. And this is where, to me, using stuff as functions instead of commands really is super helpful. It allows you to condense your code, which I happen to like after I've developed it, right? Then I condense it down. The other thing, though, that you could do, this, you can equally do, let's comment that out, with Parens. I'm taking advantage of Studio's auto matching its characters. So now I'm going to relaunch this and run it. So now that still works, right? So both of these are, you can have on one line, which if you're not used to it, could be really confusing, right? And I get that. But there's more. Wait, there's more. So those are a couple simple examples. What I wanted to do is let's start using comment these guys out, and let's have some text here. Text colon equals this is what I just typed. Okay, and then we're going to use stir split. And I'm going to use Messagebox. I've been using this a lot. I use it all the time. I've been sharing it in my scripts a lot. I'm going to use his Messagebox function, right? And we're going to put in stir split, and we're going to put txt here. And now when I run this, it split everything, and since I didn't give anything, it split on every character, right? What I meant to do was come back in here. I didn't give it a thing to split on, so we'll split on a space. So relaunch. So now it has parsed this text by every word and shoved it into an object, and because Messagebox has this cool function in his message box that if it's a variable, it'll display a variable. If it's an object, it'll do the key value pairs for you, right? So this is nothing new here. Hopefully it's not new. Very, very powerful and an easy way to peek inside an object with this Messagebox function. It converts the stuff to text into an array, basically, or a key value pair that you can look at it. And one other thing I wanted to point, we'll get to that. So now let's go ahead and drop that from it. And let's say we were saying obj colon equals, and again, we'll use his object message box to peek inside the object. So we've just stored it. Again, nothing fancy here, right? We're just storing it. Now it is an object. And if we said, let's use the regular one here, is object obj, this will come back with a 1 because the obj represents an object, not a variable. If I did this on the txt, it'll come back as 0 because text on line 7 is not, this is just a variable. This, because of stir split, stores the results in an object. Okay, we'll get to why that's sort of important here, because we're going to use the isObject here in troubleshooting in a bit. Now I'm going to bring in, because I didn't want to try to copy this. I will see at times stuff like, let me comment this one out, this on the forum, and this I have, and I still have, had and have a hard time reading and understanding. This right here, your dot one is, I know you can put dot one, like if we, and that's what we're doing up here is, let me comment this out. We shoved it into an object, and now if I do a message box obj.1, that will give me that first key value pair. Well, it's the value off of the key of 1. If I go for 3, it's the what, right? Because that's the third item in that. So yeah, that I get this notation, but what in the world is this, right? What is this dot one off of? Because we have another closing paren here, and lo and behold, so let's go ahead and use his message box function. We're going to do var1, comma, var2. This, if you separate them by commas in his message box function, it'll show each one separately on a separate line. So we launch it, and now we see it looks like we have two variables. There's this and is, right? And so this and is are the first two words. Okay, this is dot one here, gets stored into var1, and then here on the same line, which I demonstrated up above, the comma is like breaking it, saying, hey, this is a new line, var2 to obj2. This to me is straightforward. I get that. It's this part that looks like, what in the world is this? So let's simplify this code. Let's break it down. All right. So I'm going to comment that guy out. And you know what? We'll leverage. Well, you know what? I'm going to delete this. We'll comment out. I don't like deleting stuff because if you want to practice with it, right, you can see what it was. And we're going to copy this. So, oops. And I should have had, sorry, obj colon equals. So that is what we just had here, right? So that is here. So that's obj equals. And then that's the same as that. And then var1 colon equals obj dot 1. And now that's because this parens basically encapsulates this and says this is one thing, but because it's in a expression, these next parens are saying, hey, now act on this thing and add the dot one. And this thing, when it, what's the right, when AutoHotkey processes it, it converts it into that obj like we did up here, right? It stores an obj, and then it says now act on it and add the dot one to that, right? So this is the same thing as these two lines are the same things as this stuff, right? What you have to understand is that AutoHotkey resolves, it kind of runs this part first and then continues on, and so you can actually use it in the same, it looks like it's the same line, but it's not the same line. In reality, think of it as being on the next line. This is a little special because we've added the second paren and put the dot one there, but what we could have done is just said, this to me I could read as well, right? So that let's add obj here at the beginning, obj comma. Now when I run this, we'll see here is everything in the object, and then here is the var1 and var2, right? So that's what I just did here. Was this line is exactly equivalent to this line. Let me uncomment just so we can see it. I just restructured it a little bit to me, which is just, for me, it's easier to read, but it's good to understand of how AutoHotkey collapses things and acts on them. I've seen there's like a for loop, is it a for loop for web scraping, where you can get a list of the count of all the items, and then you iterate over the count because the com object doesn't have a numerator, which allows you to use the for loop. But you can first get the length of everything and then wrap it with the parens, but then still act on it, kind of similar to what this is doing right in here. And it's always confused me, and even still now when I see it, I have a really hard time seeing it, understanding, grasping it. So I'm gonna try to get better at this, but I just thought I'd document this because no one really walks through this, I think, in a workflow, and you can really see how the things are equivalent, and that's what I think hopefully this helps people. So hope you're having a great day. Cheers.